Yes, my name's Stan Natchez. I'm a Shoshone Tatavian. My background's education. I've traveled pretty extensively as a painter, and probably most importantly for me is that I started dancing when I was quite young at powwows. And being urban, growing up in Los Angeles, it kind of gave me some personal self-esteem to feel good about myself. What I'm going to share here today is a little bit of my work. This is from an exhibition. It was at the Booth Museum in Georgia. And the name of the exhibition was Indian Without Reservation. And for me, it's just kind of a play on words. And I think that probably the person that influenced me the most in painting and to be conscious of the painting was Fritz Scholder. And one of the things he told me was, there's no limits. You're only limited by your own creativity. There's, I think for us as natives, sometimes, so often, we're trying to search for something that's native, but still show the collision of the two worlds that we live in. Like she said, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in education. I taught for 17 years. And what's really influenced me the most as a painter is powwow dancing. This is taken in Taos, New Mexico, and the vest is beaded, and the outfit is beaded by me and my wife. And I think being able to do the beadwork and to go out there and listen to those songs that my grandma gave me, have given me some strength in wherever I traveled. I think that I really start out probably explaining my work, talking about other dances, some California Indian dancers and hoopah, and I think that the traditional dances really kind of evolved into powwows, because the powwow thing is the only thing that all native tribes have that we can dance together in one circle. Before that, the tribes had their own different dances, and some of the things that have influenced me as a historian and as an artist is some of the treaties and our interpreters. And sometimes the interpreter didn't really tell the Indians the truth. They told them what they wanted to, what the government wanted them to hear. So a lot of times our elders were misinformed when they did sign treaties. And how that really influences me, like great people, you know, Nez Pierce and Chief Joseph, and these elders, they said great things. They said things about the environment, and they prophesized. They talked about that someday there would be a spider web across the country. And if you get in a plane, you look at all the telephone wires, it looks like a giant spider web over our land. For us, and it wasn't until like the 70s, I think my father's era it wasn't really popular to feel good about being Indian. They named me Stanley. That's a good Indian name. So I think, and then some of the warriors, and we were so diverse. You see a Pawnee, and you see someone from the Northwest Coast. So when the Europeans came, they thought, oh, they're all Indians. We can put them all in one. Send them all to Oklahoma. They all live there. But we were so diverse, and we didn't get along. And I think that's one of the things that they really misunderstood us, is because, first of all, in the arrival of Columbus, there was over 300 separate languages. The Cherokee could not talk to the Sioux could not talk to the Arapaho could not talk to the Chumash, and on and on. They weren't dialects, they were separate languages. And if you ever study anthropology, the way to really figure out how old a people are is by their languages. And one of the things that really had a great deal of impact on us is, first of all, we're really family-oriented. Family is everything. My grandma told me a short story, and it was this little boy. He goes to the main house, and he asks his father for a blanket. And so the little boy starts cutting the blanket in half, and the dad says, hey, that's a new penalty. Why are you cutting it in half? He goes, well, I'm going to give half to Grandpa. I'm going to save the other half for when you're old. So those kind of stories, they stayed with me, because you know what? Our elders are the ones that left. They gave us our songs and our dances and kept us. What really had great impact on us as natives, and really, therefore, has impact on my art, is boarding schools. When they took native people away from home, hundreds of miles away from home, and took them into boarding schools, cut their braids off, dressed them in a very military fashion, they took some of the life out of them. And when they did that, some of those elders went home, and it's sad to say that they were abused in some of the places. So we already know the basics of any kind of abuse. You come home, and that verbal abuse, that anger, you're passing on. This is, he was Red Cloud's cousin, and he sent his boys to Carlisle to, it was named Spotted Tail. And Spotted Tail, this is the first Indian law case in the United States. The first, and you study Indian law, the first law case was Crow Dog killed Spotted Tail. And they were going to hang Crow Dog. But some liberal came and says, you can't hang Crow Dog because he killed another Indian. So they created a native court. When he killed Spotted Tail, what the tribal council came up with is that Crow Dog had to feed Spotted Tail's family for the rest of his life. So he would have to take elk and deer and buffalo to that family, but that family, they hated him, so they didn't eat that food. So every time Crow Dog had to come, humility was his lesson, because that food would just rot. The people wouldn't eat it. This is Spotted Tail, and he was really popular in the early days to educate the kids, to educate his own kids. And what he said is that without the white man's education, you're his slave, but with the white man's education, you're his equal. So he knew that there was times of change, and that was coming. And I always found that really interesting, is that the first Indian law case had impact on us. And this is an example of the boarding schools where they took hundreds of Indians, cut off all their braids. If they would talk their language, they would stick a rubber band in their mouth and pull it back and let it go. So all of those things had impact. But you know what? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not standing here with any anger. It's like my grandma taught me, is that anger is a disease. And after a while, you don't know what you hate anymore. But to me, my work is not really political. I think my work is more educational. And to see the impact, what it had on our children. So the young girls, they were able to go home and make a good bed. Hey, they can clean the toilets real good. They can use Pine Sol. But they didn't know how to be a mother anymore because they got disattached from that family. How to, but they can clean the house good. And it's really funny where you can see them in one stage, and like a before and after. This is the same kid right here, and what the difference was. And then they had to give him a name too, and some refused to get a Christian name, and some if they didn't get a Christian name, that they really couldn't answer questions, or they would kind of stifle their learning because of that, the stubborn ones. And it shows you the before and after and what the impact it had on us, because for us, the boarding school, my dad's generation, it kind of took them apart. So you kind of got, the families got a little disconnected. And the thing that we realized early in the 70s is that this is Magpie Bent. There was a white man who married an Indian woman. From the Bent's Fort in Colorado. And this is his son, who was half Cheyenne and half white. And he married a Cheyenne woman, Magpie. And they were starting to teach their kids English, to read and write. But you got to remember, in the 1800s, the only reason they created education in this country is so people could learn to read the Bible. There was no other reason for them to teach kids how to read and write. And then we became modern men. It's really funny. I can remember my son coming home, and he said, "Gee, Dad, a teacher said I think I got in trouble because they wanted all the kids to sit around cross-legged and sit Indian style." And my son says, "No, we have chairs at home. We don't sit like that." So he got in trouble, those things stay with me. Yes, we have, when I travel international, it's kind of funny because Europeans there still think that the reservation has barbed wire around it and gun towers, and we're chasing wagon trains on weekends or something. But we're really modern man. And, that's what really changed us is in the 70s, for the first time, when Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee and some of these books came out, for the first time Native people realized that we had something that modern man didn't have, is that we were still connected with our family, the environment, and ceremonies, where modern man was just concerned about consumption and buying and selling. And the family wasn't even that important. They were not only disconnected with themselves, but their own family and the extended family. So when I paint, I try to paint the things that really have impact. Here I'm painting on the yellow pages. And I'm using comic strips, and I'm using currency. And the dollar bill, for me, it's the most powerful symbol of the 21st century. If I wanted to document the time that I live in as a native, the dollar bill, this is a sheet of dollar bills uncut. And you buy them from the Department of Printing and Engraving. And these are clan mothers. And the clan mothers had the power to impeach the chiefs. The concept of impeachment in the American Constitution came from the Iroquois Nation. Benjamin Franklin borrowed it from the Iroquois Nation, and he borrowed impeachment. But he didn't give it to the clan mothers, he gave it to the people instead. But 7 of the clan mothers of the Iroquois Nation could impeach the chief and re-elect them. So Hollywood kind of, that's another thing, Hollywood kind of made it look like, okay, the guy would go into teepee first and the women would be following him. But we weren't belittling our women. Is that man would be willing to die if there was an enemy or a rattlesnake. He went in there as a protector, not that he was better. So, a lot of times people have misconceptions of our traditional people. And this is Medicine Crow 6 times. And I do a lot of different stuff. I use a lot of different backgrounds. I use the yellow pages, baseball cards, and old stamps. I really like old stamps. I think that, you see George Washington here, and I know, and believe me, in the top it'll say stamping our history. Maybe you can, it's kind of really cursive looking, but a lot of circles. And really, it's like a play on stuff. For me, as a father and as a grandfather, as a husband, I think I have a responsibility to share who I am when I paint. And I try to paint. I paint to understand the world that surrounds me. So I hope by sharing my art with you, I help you to understand a little bit. And if you have any questions at any point, just save them for the end, because they're going to corner us over here in a minute. This is a painting that was 8 foot by 10 foot. Each of these panels, there are 4 panels. And what this is on is, I have a friend that's, he's Navajo Sioux in San Felipe. His wife, San Felipe, Taos, Hickory, and yes, the little girl is of 5 tribes. Well, she's going to school at ASU for pre-law, but she can't get money from any of the tribes because she's not enough. She's not a quarter blood of any of the tribe, but she's a full blood. So, are you 1/16th, or are you 1/32nd, or are you a full blood, but you don't have a BIA number, so you're in shadow now. So what we have done to ourselves, and we're the only people on the whole planet, the only people that are documented through blood quantum, like pedigree horses and dogs. So we're the only people in the whole world that you're documented. If you're not a quarter blood, and our tribes at home, there's no benefits for you. And it doesn't matter. I just think that when we have someone of 6 tribes and is a full blood, and she wants to go back, out of the 6 tribes, one can't figure it out and say, okay, we'll give you money for school, but the first couple of years you come and help the tribe. I mean, we're our worst enemy. And I don't only paint Indians, I had this lady, I was talking, she goes, I paint Indians, but I'm white. I'm like, that's okay. I'm not white, but I paint sunflowers. And this is kind of my Stan Go piece. I'm really influenced. Right? I taught art history. So when you teach art history, you travel through time. You start with Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Stone Age, and then you go all the way into all the isms. And Van Gogh, to me, I had a great admiration for him. First of all, he only sold 1 painting in his whole life for $100. His brother Theo really supported him. So that's kind of my Stan Go piece. But this is pretty interesting. This is a ticket for the World Columbian Exhibition in 1893. The World Columbian Exhibition was in Chicago, and I just liked, because the people who designed this ticket originally, which was about this big, they were great engravers. This was all engraved, and they were great artists. In fact, the people who designed money at the time, it was a banknotes, they did a lot of the old tickets for the World Columbian Exhibition. And when I had this painting in my gallery, some people from Chicago asked me if I ever read a book, Devil in the White City. And it's about Chicago in that time. I don't know. I'd really like to read it. It sounds interesting. It's kind of a mystery novel of that time, 1893. And here is kind of a smaller version of the one with the multiple images. You have Medicine Crow and on dollar bills. I have it on maps, and instruments of trade and yellow pages. And you know what? All I'm trying to do is document the time. I'm trying to paint a little bit of that collision that we had to go through. And I think some places, I'm very urban, so it's different for me. But I've been to, there was a special last year, Diane Sawyer, she went to Pine Ridge. And Pine Ridge in South Dakota is a third world country in the middle of America. Unemployment is at 80%. And here, this is a large piece, it's probably maybe 7 foot tall, but the moccasins are beaded literally through the canvas. And I like the idea of adding the beadwork because my grandma taught me how to bead when I was young, so I've always beaded, me and my wife, we've always done beadwork. But bringing that, to me, the beadwork is from the old world, the painting's from the new world. So whenever you can mix something from the old world with the new world, it's very unique in any time in history. So when I really started painting, I was doing stuff on sheets of dollar bills, and I realized early on that I was going to retire to paint full time. And as a teacher and as a father at the time and a mortgage on top of it, it was really tough to give up that teaching job. And I tell my wife, look, if I can't make it after 1 year painting, I'll go back to teaching at the university at ASU. My first show was with Elaine Horowitz here in town. I made more money one summer than my first 5 years of teaching. So my world changed. These are clan mothers, and this painting was probably maybe 10 foot long, and all the moccasins were beaded. And what I really liked, I tried a lot of stuff, and the dresses kind of remind me of the ribbon dresses my grandma would wear and make. So I tried material, calico material at first, and it frayed and everything. This is actually paper, Japanese paper that I cut out, and so it's kind of my version of paper dolls. I did a show with Jane Ash Portress. She's from Canada, a really great painter as well. And she goes, oh, I see the little boy in you. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, I mean, come on, the little cowboys and Indians still shooting at each other, right? I really never thought of that. I think there's things that happen subconsciously when you paint. This is a painting of Custer. I call it Custer's Golden Days. And there's soldiers falling out of the sky because Sitting Bull, before Custer came to the Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull had a vision of soldiers falling into the camp. And that's kind of like Custer's last dream right there. And I did a presentation, this was years ago in the Elaine Horowitz days, and 2020 was doing a piece on political Indian art. And I noticed all the other Indian artists in the exhibit were really she was like feeding them, and they were saying, oh yeah, that's about the pain, the poverty, and the despair, and everyone had, and then she came to me and she says, could you tell me about your political painting? It was a flag piece, but it was under the Constitution was underneath. I go, no, it's not a political painting. It's educational. She goes, no, I see the American flag. I see the Constitution. I said, did you know tribes today are not covered under the Constitution or the Bill of Rights? She goes, do you mean today? I'm like, yes, we're covered under the Indian Civil Rights Act. She goes, I didn't know that you were not covered under the Constitution. I go, well, then it's educational, right? She goes, cut. I didn't feed into the angry Indian thing. I'm like, no, you got the wrong person, okay? And really influenced by T.C. Cannon as well. This is paying homage to T.C. Cannon. This is a piece that's in the private collection at home. And the vest is fully beaded on the painting. Literally beaded the whole thing. And I've had a couple of people wanting to buy it, and I asked them, what kind of car do you drive? Just maybe a Range Rover I would trade, but that's about it. Here's I use Medicine Crow a number of different ways. And this is kind of Medicine Crow in two worlds. This is the traditional and the more modern. And that's what I put here. And someone came back from Africa and brought me currency from Zimbabwe. And I used that. But it was really strange just because she brought me a lot of it. And there was a special on TV about African currency and how it had a lot of dangerous stuff on it, viruses. And it was, people handle it in currency, even American currency is very dirty. So I got all that currency put in a big bucket with bleach, and I know bleach kills the AIDS virus. So I'm like, okay, before I start gluing this down, I'm going to bleach. And I thought it was going to bleach the color out of them, and it didn't. It was really kind of interesting. So I try to use, because you know what I'm saying is, it's not about America. It's, we live in the world. We live in the planet. And one of the things is that for us as powwows, is that we're modern man. And for us, when we have ceremonies, we don't pray only for Indian country or that one little reserve. Our ceremonies are praying for the whole planet, for all peoples of the world. Because as modern man, we're just as modern man as anybody else. We're bad eaters. Come on, my wife has me on this smoothie diet. I'm over 200 pounds, and she's trying to slim me down, so I'm not a diabetic. And I'm a big guy. Like, I need something a little more than a little smoothie. I'm like, geez, So, we're bad eaters, and that's one of the things that you kind of learn. And one of the things in Indian country right now is wellness, is because sugar, flour, salt, white bread, all that stuff is, really has put a toll on Indian country. Diabetes is very high. And like, I went to a place and they were saying, oh, after this, we're going to have some Indian fry bread. And I'm like, no, that's not Indian food. That's government food. We didn't eat flour and lard. We didn't know what that was. So I tried to share some of that. And I have a few things here. I don't want to get long-winded because I could very easily. Because I've always been sort of an introvert. I'm a little shy. But I'm working on that part now. And I like to just kind of stop there. And I have some pieces that you can look at the beadwork and look at the texture itself. Like this is fully beaded right here. And it's really terrible being right here because when that light hits me, I feel like I'm being interrogated. I didn't do it. So if you have any questions, at the end we'll be able to share those, and the next speaker will come and share what he has to do. Thank you.